All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great Thursday. It's a little cloudy where we are. How is it where you are, Corey?
Is it Thursday? I thought it was like Mother's Birthday.
Yeah, I don't know. I mostly guess what day it is. I think it's Thursday because we have this interview scheduled on Thursday. So
Now, Vegas is good, except it's supposed to rain today, and we don't know what to do when it rains.
yeah, it looks like it's gonna rain here too. And with all the kids home and inside, we're like, where's the sun? Go outside. you know. All right. Well, so everybody, I'm really excited to bring a special guest. Corey is somebody that I have known for many, many years, and he is without a doubt the most knowledgeable person I have ever met, bar none, when it comes to using retirement accounts strategically for the purpose of investing. And so I've been trying to get him to come on for a while. He's very highly sought after. He's super busy, but he's like literally like the smartest guy in the country when it comes to this. So I held out and I'm so excited. He's finally here. And so Corey, why don't we start with just tell our group about you, your background, and what we're going to talk about today.
Man, I don't know. After that hype up, I'm like, I just got to walk away now because it's only going to go downhill from here. Well, I mean, you're right, Stacy. I mean, actually, I grew up not too far away from you. I grew up in Southern California. I went out to school. After high school, I went to the Marine Corps. So I was 6 years in the service. And after that, I decided to come out to Vegas. And in Las Vegas, I figured the hospitality industry was the way to go. Unfortunately, you're working 80 hours a week. You're working nights and weekends. And long term, it just didn't seem like a great strategy. So I went back to school. I got my master's degree in business and finance. And after I got out of the hospitality industry, I said, what am I going to do? And I really love numbers to be able to take place. So my background, my first job was being a bank teller. My dad was actually the vice president of savings and loans banks, if you remember back in the late 80s. So that was my first job, was being a teller. So it was really cool to be able to see that transition to be able to take place. So I started doing commercial lending for 3 years. I actually started finding deals as a bird dog, if you remember those days. And so before we had Google, I actually drove around the properties in different areas here in Las Vegas. So I'd work at night in the restaurant business. I'd find some properties in the daytime. And after a while, I'm like, instead of me just making $500 on a deal, what if I actually found these properties and did some wholesaling or did some flipping with them? So I did that. And then unfortunately, 2008 came by and that wiped me out and rebuilt after that. And then I decided I have to go into a different area. And so because of the financing, after commercial financing, I said, what about retirement accounts? And it's just interesting because when you think of the trillions of dollars that are out there, most people don't really have a clue what to do with their money, or they don't really have much control because all that money is held with the financial institution or with their current employer and what they're doing. And so when you start to really realize how it's a game, and unfortunately we're playing the wrong side of the game and we're set to lose, then our job is to educate then people like who you're working with to see what we can do to at least show them that there are other options available to them.
Awesome. I was muting myself so I don't hear any kids in the background just in case. So Corey, why don't we talk a little bit about, so you had said when we were originally talking, like, hey, I can talk about like what's the difference between using like your 401k versus your IRA. And then of course, when all this current events went down, now there's a whole different, interesting set of topics to talk about. Why don't we start with just kind of the initial, like that's not so specific to the moment, but more broad, like using IRA, 401k, kind of educate our group about what their options are there. And actually and for all you guys listening, I want you to think beyond yourself, because one of the things like in our mastermind group, I teach everyone there, like you want to know what resources you have, but you might not have all the resources you learn about, but someone else does. And that might be a really good strategic partner for you. So when Corey's talking to you guys and teaching you about this, I want you to keep in mind and think about yourself, because this might apply to you, but if it doesn't, I want you to still absorb the knowledge, because it's something that you could use to maybe help. Let's say your neighbor was like, I kind of want to invest in real estate, but I don't know anything about it. And then you find out that they have a certain kind of retirement account that you can connect them with Corey. He can get them set up properly, and then they can actually invest with you. So think of it beyond just yourself and about people that you could possibly connect with Corey so that he can turn their retirement funds into something that you can actually use in your investing business, or you and that person could both benefit. Okay, sorry, just wanted to prepare everyone to think beyond just their own stuff.
Well, to bring up a good point though for you, Stacy, a good friend of mine, he works for Coldwell Banker. He's a real estate agent here in Las Vegas. And it's amazing though to be able to see, I showed him these strategies when he started in the business about 5 years ago, and he's now one of the top real estate agents for Coldwell Banker in Las Vegas and now even in the country, because he's been using some of these strategies that we were talking about. Because somebody says, well, I just want to go after that single family and buy that home, but traditionally speaking, you're going to live in that home for the next 3 to 7 years. So what if we get a real estate investor who can then do multiple properties with you, and then they also have retirement accounts or have access to other retirement accounts? Now that opens up a whole nother door. Say, hi, Linda. There she goes. Bye. So anyways, to go with your question though, now when you start going into retirement accounts, there's two basic versions. So you have an IRA, which is an individual retirement account. It's technically called an arrangement, but nobody's going to remember that. So an IRA is what you and I can contribute. And then you have an employer type of plan. So the most common version is a 401k, but you can also have like a 403b, a 457, a TSP for the military. So there's many different versions of it, but just know there's two basic ones: as an individual and then you as working for a company.
All right. And so kind of moving that into like, how is it relevant as a real estate investor, how can we take advantage of those different types of accounts and use them for investing?
Yep. The most common way that I see is using your IRA. Let's say you're held at some custodian, whether it's a Fidelity or Charles Schwab, Vanguard, Edward Jones, these types of companies. They're making money off of you, and people don't realize that the average is 2.1% is what you're paying in custodian fees. And unfortunately, you never see that on a statement. They don't have to disclose it only in that prospectus, and nobody ever reads a 200-page prospectus. And even if you did, it doesn't have a table of contents and page 4, here are your line items of fees. You have to go from here to here, and the average is there's 17 different ways that they charge you a fee, but they don't always call it a fee as well. So you don't even know what they're really calling it. So it gets to be very difficult, and understand then your hands are kind of tied of what they want you to be able to invest in. And then when you have a financial advisor that's also part of it, they get paid obviously on what they sell. So the question comes into place is, are they really looking out for your best benefit or behalf, or are they doing what is needed by the company at that point in time? And so we figured there has to be a better way to be able to give you those opportunities, and one of which is when you now are in charge of that retirement account. So by you taking control, that doesn't eliminate fees, but however, you can get 90% fees can be eliminated when you're in control of the plan. And so the next step then is to decide, well, what type of plan is going to be best for you based upon what your investment strategies are. So we could talk about that if you like.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so if you're going to invest into, let's say, real estate, because obviously that's what most of everybody here is listening about, you can do what's called a self-directed IRA, or you can have what's called a self-directed 401k. You may also hear the words solo 401k or qualified retirement plan, a QRP. For the terms of this conversation, they will mean the same whether it's a 401k, a solo 401k, or a qualified retirement plan. The challenge that you have in an IRA is that if you want to use it for real estate, and if you're ever going to leverage your money, so meaning if you're going to have a lender involved, then you're always going to pay taxes, even if it's in a Roth IRA or another type of format. So the challenge that you're having is you think that you're investing into a deal and you don't have to pay any taxes on it. But the reality is you're still going to have to pay taxes on it if it's in an IRA. So by having it into that solo 401k type of plan, or we call that qualified retirement plan, now you don't have what's called UDFI, which is unrelated debt financed income. So with that taking place, now you can finance it and you get to keep all the money back into your retirement account, and you have a lot more options because you're in charge of the plan. So you don't have to go through a custodian. You don't have to say, hey, custodian, can you please send me a check as a down deposit? But as you know, in real estate world, if it's a Friday night, the custodian's not open. If it's a Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday on Monday, you don't have the ability of contacting that custodian and get that check. And as you know, in real estate, sometimes you have to do something that day if you want to get that deal under contract. So the solo 401k is the preferred option for real estate investors.
Okay. So can you tell us like a little bit more how that works? Now, does someone have to have a corporation in order to have a solo 401k? Or is it something that like, can you talk a little bit more about that?
hmm So a 401k by definition is a company plan. So you don't have to
Okay.
necessarily have a
Oh,
corporation. It could be an LLC, it could be a corporation, it could even be a sole proprietor. But if you're also going to be a real estate investor, generally speaking, you're going to want a corporation to protect yourself also in whatever deals you're doing that may not be directly involved with the retirement account. Because the other part I look at is what about tax deductions? Here at Anderson Business Advisors, we teach 32 different tax deductions that you qualify for as a business that you wouldn't qualify for as an individual. I know we had Clint come on before and he went into some of those details, so I don't want to rehash necessarily all of those, but just know that when you talk to myself, if you have an existing LLC or a corporation or sole proprietor, we may utilize it, but we may want to not utilize it and do something else with it as well.
gotcha. So, okay, so the solo 401k is it's a company, so it's just your own company sponsored 401k plan, but it has benefits to it that a self-directed IRA doesn't have, which
hmm
is I didn't know that about the UDFI that you don't have to pay that in a solo 401k.
Yep.
Interesting.
If I was to narrow down, there's probably about 6 different benefits of the 401k to the IRA. And for you, obviously living in Southern California, I'll put this in California terms.
Okay.
Think of an IRA as like a Prius and a Tesla being a 401k. So if the price is the same, which car would you rather drive?
Tesla.
So if you look in a 401k, I'd say the top 3 benefits. Number one we discussed was you don't have that UDFI taking place. The second thing though is you can also personally borrow inside a 401k. You can't borrow in an IRA. You could take a distribution, but you don't have the ability to borrow. The third benefit of the 401k is also if you want to do any catch up or any type of contributions inside these plans, you're the employee and you're the employer. So now you have 2 different ways you could put money into it. Now you have over $56,000 that you could put in per person per year into a 401k versus an IRA. You're limited to $6,000 to $7,000 a year. So you literally have,
Wow.
9 times the amount of money you could put into a plan every year.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a big one. I
Mhm.
actually think, hold on one second. I have a question from Steve. Oh, okay. So one quick question is, can I transfer from an IRA into a solo 401k?
Good question. You can, as long as it's tax deferred IRA. So unfortunately, there's 2 types of IRAs that cannot transfer into a 401k. So any Roth IRAs, which are tax exempt, and also if you have any inherited IRAs, generally speaking, you're not able to transfer that. But otherwise, so
Gotcha.
any type of tax deferred IRAs, you'd be eligible to be able to do it. And then once it's in the 401k, one of the benefits though too is you can have in essence 2 buckets. So you can have a tax deferred bucket and you can have a tax free bucket, also known as a
Oh,
Roth. So you could have what's called a Roth 401k if you want the profits to grow tax exempt.
interesting. Okay, very good. And Steve, just so that you know, after the call is done, Corey will send me a link so that you can connect with him and you can talk specifically. Because I know with you and your wife right now, you're looking at all the strategies for using your funds for real estate. So, um, okay, cool. So that first of all, that's fascinating information. Is there anything more about the 401k versus the IRA that you think we should talk about before we jump into the stimulus package and how that impacts things?
Well, I think the other part I touched briefly on was the fact when you're in charge of the plan, you have checkbook control. And so that's very important to be able to
Oh,
have that because if you have an IRA, you have to go through a custodian or a third party company to be able to handle that. You can't personally handle it unless then you get an LLC involved. And then the owner of the LLC would be your custodian and you'd be the manager. I used to work for a company like that. The problem is there's less and less of those companies out there. You think of most self-directed IRA companies, they don't want you to be in charge of the plan in any way, shape, or
right.
form because they don't make the fees. So therefore, they're not going to let you have that LLC so that you have that checkbook control. So when you have that solo 401k created by us, not only do you have the benefits of working with us to create the LLC, but you also have that checkbook control. What makes it unique though as well is obviously we're talking about real estate, but there's so many other investments. I mean, I just invested last week into oil, And so oil's been, a nice little roller coaster ride. However, based upon today's numbers, it's going in the up direction. And so what's nice about something in a solo 401k is now you can invest into other alternative income streams, such as Forex. You can do oil, you could do precious metals like gold right now obviously has a nice uptick going on and taking place as well. So it just gives you a lot more freedom. But at the same time, if you did want to invest in traditional stocks or mutual funds, you can do that with us as well. So now you have the flexibility of everything versus a self-directed IRA. You're really limited to either cash or that particular real estate investment.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and I know that is a difference because I know with the self-directed IRA, you have to stick to the alternative one. You can't do the regular stocks and bonds and things. So, okay, very cool. Well, I really didn't know that much about the solo 401k, so this is new to me as well. Right on. Well, like I said, you're the most knowledgeable person I've ever met. Especially, we haven't even started talking about creative and strategy and things like that.
That's but I'll tell
you what, if you guys want to brainstorm with someone who can help you maximize your funds, your retirement funds, in the most creative and legal ways, Corey is your guy. We've had a lot of really good conversations over the years.
We have.
All right, so let's maybe talk about the stimulus package and what's being impacted by that from where you're sitting.
Well, it's been huge. It's been now 12 days since we've been able to start the process. This morning, I was just reading that Congress is asking for another $250 billion for small business owners. And unfortunately, it was blocked so far by the Democrats. They want to come up with their own plan. So it gets to be interesting to see that whatever side of politics we're on, ultimately the money should be going to small business owners. And of that $2 trillion, only a small percentage of that is actually going towards small business owners. And so we've created here within Anderson a way to be able to have the application process streamlined, because there's actually 6 different ways that you can qualify for these different types of loans. Some are loans, some are grants. They've talked about the EIDL and the PPP as being the top 2, but there are other ones to be able to take place. But specifically to answer your question on the stimulus package, when it comes to retirement account, you have some amazing things that we've never seen in the history of our lifetime that now are available to you. So if you have an IRA, so whether it's a self-directed IRA or if you have it with your current custodian, you can go to them, and technically in an IRA, you have what's called a 60-day rollover. And what that 60-day rollover means is you could take out any amount of that IRA account and you can do anything you want to for it for 60 days, but then it has to go back into that custodian or to another custodian within 60 days. Otherwise, you would get taxed on it. And if you're under 59.5, then you would also get penalized in an additional 10%. Well, with this stimulus package, they've now increased it from 60 days to 3 years. So you can take out 100% of your IRA funds. You have 3 years to utilize it how you like. The profits can grow to you, and you just have to put back what you initially took out initially. And now you have 3 years to be able to do that in. So it's pretty powerful in the IRA component.
And so you can make money outside your IRA and just use it because you're just basically borrowing it.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting. It's funny because Steve is the one who posed that question, and just the other day on our mastermind, he's the one who brought that up. Hey, we just found out that what used to be 60 days is now 3 years. And I was like, that must be what Corey's talking about. Because I said, I literally was just texting back and forth, and he said, yeah, there's been some really interesting changes. I said, I bet that's what he's talking about. So very interesting.
So that's for the IRA. Now the 401k is even better. I'm shocker on that one, right? So on the 401k, generally speaking, you had the rule, what we call the 50-50 rule. So you had $50,000 that you can borrow as long as you had at least $100,000 or more in the account. And so if not, then it'd be 50% of whatever's in the account. So for example, if you have $120,000 in the retirement account in your 401k, you can borrow the full amount, which is $50,000. If you have $60,000 in your retirement account, then the most you could borrow would have been then half of that. So that would have been $30,000. So that was the 50-50 rule. And then the way it was working previously till 2 weeks ago is then you have 5 years to pay it back. Now the benefit is you're paying it back to yourself. You're paying it back at a low interest rate. You're paying about 4%, and you're paying yourself the interest rate. So effectively, it's a zero cost of capital. So now with the stimulus package, what they've done now is doubled it. So now If you have $120,000 in the account, you can now borrow up to 120, or I'm sorry, up to 100,000 of that 120,000.
Oh,
Now, let's say
interesting.
you have less than $100,000 in your account, you can borrow then a full amount of it. So if you have
Oh,
$60,000 in your 401k, you can now borrow the full $60,000.
wow. And are the rest of the terms still the same? You pay yourself back
You pay yourself back,
over
but here's the
five
cool
years.
thing. It's now over 6 years with the first year being deferred. So you pay no payments for the first year. So it still will be amortized over 5 years.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And that's so that is someone pulling it out to use it for whatever they want, but obviously the whatever they want can be for their real estate investing
Correct. So we'd
or
have
for
a lot of them.
whatever.
I mean, for example, you and I, right? We're not 59 and a half yet. So it's like, yes, I want to grow my retirement account, but at the same time, I want to live off this money. What if after everything is done, hey, let's go take a week vacation. Let's go to Hawaii or somewhere cool and special. Well, if I make all that money in the retirement account, it's like, woohoo, great. But what do I do today? And so the
Right.
benefit of having then that loan to be able to take place, now you have that option and that freedom to be able to utilize it towards your business, towards any expenses maybe you have, whether it's education costs or anything else that's been related to your business. Now you have some way to be able to help your business fund and grow it with marketing costs and so on.
Gotcha. Well, that's definitely a big deal. And I know obviously from the solo 401k standpoint, you would help people with that. But if there's people who are at their current employers, that's something that would also apply to them right now.
It would apply to them, but here's the challenge. Just because it's a federal guideline doesn't mean their employer will allow it. So
Oh,
so
okay.
it still gets to be difficult to say because the custodian and the employer have already some type of agreement into place. In other words, some employers don't even allow you to take a loan, or maybe you can only have one loan at a time. So if you
Oh,
want to be able to take advantage of this program, if you already have a loan outstanding, you may have to pay off that loan first before you qualify. And then there's other rules that you may not qualify for that full amount because, of course, in a 401k, there's a little bit more complications that can come with it.
sure.
So the way I
Gotcha.
look at it, the best way is when we create the plans, we give you complete control. You could have up to 4 loans outstanding at a time. So you can have a tier type of system where you can borrow it all at once. So we don't give you those restrictions like your employers typically would.
That's awesome. That's huge. That's that's some
It
big
is.
flexibility. All
Absolutely.
right, awesome. So Corey, if somebody has like, what's a good I guess what's a good connection for you? Because the people who end up watching this, sometimes they'll be in our Facebook group. They might be later on today or tonight. It might be on YouTube later when I post it. So they might be watching it. Maybe for them, they're like, well, I don't have a 401k or I'm not at the right place yet. But hey, I was talking to my sister and I know she needs help. Can you talk about like what is a good introduction for you, whether it be someone in this group or outside, so that someone in this group might be able to help someone be connected with you who would benefit from it?
Yeah, it's obviously because I've been working 12-hour days for the past week because of the CARE stimulus package,
Oh,
but I still have time. It's been crazy from 6:30 in the morning till literally 6:30 at night, at least for the
oh,
past week. We expect a little bit of that to slow down, next coming week or so, because there's a lot of people who are applying under that stimulus package right now. So I'm more than happy, though. Obviously, I always take the time, and obviously for any of your listeners, we do a 30-minute consultation for free. Our time is we usually bill an hourly rate, which is $3.50 an hour. So you can call up directly to Anderson Business Advisors, ask to speak with Corey Posgay. My Posgay is in Posgay. I used to say positively gay, but people didn't understand what that meant. I was like, don't worry about it. You can just imagine when I was in the Marine Corps, right? And they're like,
I
oh,
can
Posgay.
only imagine.
Yeah. But it's amazing how at least I didn't say stuff in front of me once I was like a sergeant in the Marine Corps. But when you're like a lance corporal and you're still on the lower end of the echelon, it could be amazing.
Uh-huh. You
But
hear,
it's
you
fun.
hear all of it.
Exactly. My direct line is 702-830-9956. That's 702-830-9956. You can email me, and maybe on the subject line, they can always put, just Facebook, Stacy, whatever you'd like to be able to do as well. And so that's my first initial last name. So that's C and then Posgay, Posgay at AndersonAdvisors.com. And
Gotcha.
we'll give you a link as well so they can go that option. So there's many different ways to be able to do that, but I'd love to be able to speak with anybody, just be able to help them. The way I look at it, is once you have the knowledge in place, then you can determine what you want to be able to do. We do
Yeah.
help out our clients. What makes us unique is that we can create the corporation and the LLCs for asset protection. But we are also not just a law firm, but also CPA accounting and bookkeeping service provider. So we can look at the taxes. I also do the estate planning. So as a retirement specialist, living trusts. Now I'm salary, but it's interesting to see I've sold probably more living trusts in the past 30 days than we have in the past 6 months. I think
Wow.
because people are just realizing they have to make sure they have some type of estate planning in place now. And in addition to it, they're also looking at it and go, well, wait a second, I don't have any power of attorney. Like what happens if I do go to the
Oh.
hospital? Who's able to
Oh.
make decisions on my behalf? So it's been
Yeah.
important to be able to have that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, Corey, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're super busy and I'll let you get back to it. Thank you so much and I know I was like, well, we could do it in a couple of weeks. And you're like, well, we could, but people probably need to know this now based on what's going on. And I was like,
Yeah.
can you squeeze me in? So
Yes.
thank you for doing this. And it's been a pleasure. Anybody who wants to reach out to Corey, I will put the link in the notes or in the comments, and just reach out and get some advice and get some help if this is something that works or that you guys need, or if you know anybody who needs it, keep them in mind so that you
Absolutely.
can help the person. Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you, Corey.
My pleasure, Stacy. Thank you very much for your time.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
Bye.